Welcome to the Carolina Fire Watch, where we are your source for the North Carolina Fire Service news, training, leadership, and real-world lessons learned. From the mountains to the coast, we're powered by the pride, honor, and tradition of the Old North State. Now, let's get into today's show.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the March episode of the Carolina Fire Watch. Man, we have got an action-packed episode this month. You're not going to want to miss it. Of course, we've got the wonderful Michael Agaris, who's going to talk to us about this month in North Carolina Fire Service history. We're going to talk about a very special spotlight segment. I've actually got a viewer entry who gave us a really nice email. You're going to want to definitely hear that one. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about SERT data. You probably saw the topic that's there. Don't want to miss the Bucket Brigade. And then I got a very special last two segments in addition to our don't forgets or our reminders. We're going to drop some details about merch. Because I've been gotten hit up so much about that. And then I got a special guest that's going to come in and talk to us about the March Madness. Y'all, thanks so much for that. You're not going to want to miss it until the end. This month's episode is going to be amazing. Y'all stay tuned. Let's get started. So before we start with this month in fire service history, let's give our monthly Carolina Spotlight. And last month, they barely missed the deadline, but Maysville Fire and EMS sent me a nomination for this month. And I got to tell you, this one is special. This is a former coworker of mine, but a good friend and a longtime friend. And this month, it is very, very relevant. And I'm sure that you know someone just like the gentleman that I'm going to speak about here in just a moment. So if you do, send us your nomination for the Carolina Spotlight at thecarolinafirewatch@gmail.com. This month's spotlight is Chief Michael Jordan of Maysville Fire and EMS. And I just want to read you the email that I got from them because I think it's very, very important just to kind of give them a shout out. I am writing to nominate Chief Michael Jordan of Maysville Fire and EMS for your spotlight feature. Chief Jordan has served as fire chief for over 20 years, and during that time, he has demonstrated exceptional leadership, dedication, and passion for the fire service. His commitment to both his department and his community is evident in everything he does. This past year alone, Chief Jordan worked diligently alongside his members to successfully lower their department's ISO rating to a Class 3, a tremendous accomplishment that directly benefits the citizens they serve. In addition, he has led the efforts to construct a brand new fire station, which is expected to be completed this summer. This project represents not only growth, but long-term investment in the safety and future of the community. Beyond administration and leadership, Chief Jordan remains hands-on in the field. In the past year, while returning from a fire call in a fire truck, he helped successfully deliver a baby boy, a powerful reminder that our first responders are called to serve in all types of emergencies. He is dedicated fire service instructor who works with numerous colleges and teaches at the National Fire Academy. He's helping shape and mentor the next generation of firefighters. His influences reach as far beyond his own department. Chief Jordan works tirelessly for his department, his community, and his family. His leadership, humility, and work ethic make him more than deserving of recognition. Thank you for considering him for your April Spotlight feature. So again, on behalf of the entire fire service, thank you, Chief Jordan, for the work that you do and for leaving Maysville Fire and EMS better than you found it. You know, he's not only the only one that we'd like to give a shout out to this month. We have Chief Kurt Deaton, who just retired, who's on the board for the North Carolina State Firefighters Association. Congratulations on your retirement, Chief Deaton, as well as some other amazing milestones that we share all along on the social media channels. And here's the only thing I ask. If you have something you'd love to highlight, just tag us. Tag us on your Instagram, your Facebook, your TikTok, and just be sure to add the Carolina Fire Watch and just tag us in it, and we'd be more than happy to share it. So that is this month's Carolina Spotlight.
Welcome to this month's segment of This Month in North Carolina Fire Service History, and I've got Mike Lagares with me. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, we're going to talk rescue squads and specifically in North Carolina Fire Service history. What have you got for us this month, Mike?
We're going to go back to 1953, March 18th, 1953, when the Goldsboro Rescue Squad was placed in service. But unlike some of the other early independent rescue squads at that time, this one was initially operated by the fire department. Now, first, I'm going to give a little context. Rescue squads in North Carolina were relatively new. Before the 1950s, there were just a handful. Winston-Salem, the very first in 1937, Davidson County in 1941, and also Elkin in 1941, Milford down at the coast, 1942, and Gaston, I believe theirs was the life-saving crew in 1948. Then when we start getting into the early 50s, the numbers of rescue squads start to grow. Another important note is that these were not the equivalent of today's EMS agencies. They largely, almost exclusively, would stay away from patient transports. That duty was performed by funeral homes or private ambulance companies. These rescue squads, they performed first aid on scene, they responded to drownings or body recoveries, and handled other rescue situations. Now, I'm going to give one big disclaimer here. I am not an EMS historian, nor do I play one on television. So readers, those of you more knowledgeable, you can correct our conversation as needed. So back to Goldsboro. Starting in 1952, the fire chief, Wesley Howell, was going around to various local civic clubs, and he was trying to sell them on the idea of a rescue squad. He was telling them that the fire department had lately been called more and more to rescue operations, rescue calls such as drownings, but he didn't feel that the fire department was properly equipped. The fire department had an inhaler, a resuscitator, and the 33 members of the department were trained in first aid, but the chief saw they needed better equipment and specially trained personnel for rescue operations. The local Lions Club, they took interest, so they bought a panel truck for the city. They raised money, they collected equipment, and in March of 1953, they donated the van to the city. The van cost them $1,600, and they raised more money so they could have upgrades, and they made some $5,000 in upgrades. So, March 18th, 1953, the rescue truck's put in service, and 3 days later, it answered its first call for a vehicle accident. Then what happened? Well, then the Lions Club undertook a second project later in 1953 to organize a rescue squad organization. That became the Goldsboro Rescue Squad organization. They operated alongside the fire department rescue units, kind of in parallel, if you will, both of them serving the city and the areas around. Now, in general, North Carolina, more statewide, there were some rescue squads that were formed by fire departments over the years, but largely most of those early ones in those first decades were independent organizations. And then from here, our history is going to go in some different directions. For example, there were some fire departments that started operating ambulance services starting like in the 1970s. Wilmington, for example, had them. There were fire departments in Forsyth County that had ambulances. Others added fire-based EMS. Some continue to this day. Greenville, for example, you just talked to their chief, or you will talk with their chief. I hope I'm not spoiling a surprise.
That's okay. Keep going.
Others ended EMS. Others, they dipped their toe in EMS services, but ended it after a few years. Here in Wake County, for example, Holly Springs dabbled with EMS service. And then from there, you've got the evolution of technical rescue services, which that's really interesting because tech rescue really started with rescue squads. But then as the decades passed, more and more fire departments took that over, but not entirely. I would guess maybe 90% statewide of the fire departments handle technical rescue, but there are still, I think it's over 100. I mean, there are a number of independent rescue squads that still do technical rescue. Then you add on to that, you've got the whole history of first responder. We'll save that one for another day.
I love it. Man, what a great bit of North Carolina Fire Service history, and wedged right there, it sounds like in the middle, it's Goldsboro doing the work. I think the first date that I heard there, Mike, was 1937.
Yes.
That was in there, and Lions Club was the one that answered the call in community service, and it's okay. I said keep going because we gave a teaser. Don't worry at the intro that we'd be talking to the Greenville fire chief and the March Madness segment. And so don't worry, we're not even going to cut that out. We're going to let that roll.
No spoiler.
So, no spoiler. No. They already know that it's coming. So you got to stay till the end. You're going to want to know about that and the evolution of all things. So, and that just happened by chance. We had this story picked before GFR even won the segment there. But man, what a great opportunity. And I guess my only question to that is, really is as you've done your studies in those rescue services, obviously we've seen a lot of consolidation, and kind of tying back to last month's themes about transitioning of services. What has been your general thoughts, or what you've seen of history? Is that, have you not seen in your history collection that a lot of those departments, I know you kind of mentioned it in your script, that some of those are not doing rescue services, but they're really just absorbing it kind of as their existing services. But did you find that a lot of those organizations merged together, or did they just add it on as extra services?
That is a great detail that I forgot to mention, that often in communities, you'd have the independent rescue squad, you'd have the fire department. And one way that fire departments took on those responsibilities is sometimes the rescue squad proper would merge, the corporate entity would merge. Sometimes the rescue squad would, the assets, some of their personnel, some of their tools and equipment would slide over. And that's also why you see, there's a number of fire departments in our state. The organizational name is Fire and Rescue, and that traces back to when you had volunteer fire and a separate volunteer rescue squad.
Rescue squad.
And, they commingled a lot. And there were many communities where the squad, they might occupy the same building. They obviously work side by side. And, and by way of context for sort of a historical perspective by the numbers, I do have a few numbers that show the evolution of call volume. So in 1954, we're going back to Goldsboro. In 1954, that calendar year, the Goldsboro Rescue Squad answered 176 calls. So that's one call every day. Goldsboro proper, they're certainly going mutual aid, so they're further out from just the city. By 1957, they're up to 405 calls a year. By 1961, they're up to 865. Go forward over a decade, 1974, the total's about 1,100. Now we're going to go much farther forward, 2000. The year 2000, Goldsboro's rescue units totals about 2,500. And then 2 years later is when Wayne County EMS was started as another trend, county-based EMS rolling up independent organizations and sort of becoming an umbrella agency. That's another trend. And so today, or actually back in 2022, the county-wide EMS was answering about 22,000 calls a year.
Wow.
That's greater call volume.
That's impressive. Mike, you always give us good information. I know folks love hearing this information. And if for some reason or another, and I know you have a huge following, if our listeners are not following you already to get nuggets like this or the latest things that are happening, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Lagares Fire Line, and my website, particularly for EMS history, you can go to lagares.com/history/EMS. And if you're thinking, I don't even know how to spell Lagares, well, you just get on Google, look up Raleigh fire photos. You'll probably find me.
Love it. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, I thought I would jump in here right now before the March Madness segment and let you know we've got an idea. We've got an idea for merch. So many people have messaged us and told us that they would like some swag. They would love a shirt. They'd love a hoodie. They'd love a hat. So we're thinking about launching a store where you can get some exclusive Carolina Firewatch swag. So drop a comment on this month's episode and let me know what kind of stuff you would like. Do you want a certain type of color? Do you want a certain type of brand? Do you want a certain type of saying? Let me know. We're generating all kinds of ideas. And oh, by the way, if I didn't tell you, we've already got challenge coins on the way. You're not going to want to miss these things. I'm going to drop it on the social media channels of where you can get it, how you can get it. And, oh, we've also got stickers. They're all going to be for sale. All you got to do is hit me up. We'll let you know when it drops, how it drops, all in the socials. You know where to find us. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. It's all there. Let me know. Do you want some swag? I think you do. Be sure to let us know what, when, where, and how. All right, welcome to this next segment on the Carolina Fire Watch. And I am super stoked for this next segment because, you know, when my son and I, who's also got a podcast, decided to do the March Madness theme where we basically had a bracket style that mirrors, you know, that ACC feel. And I know everybody who's listening to this knows what I'm talking about, where there was basketballs just going nuts in March for championships. We decided to kind of band all that stuff together and create what is your favorite fire truck color? Now, I had to pick some local communities, and I got to say, I didn't realize what was going to happen when I picked some North Carolina departments because, man, did people show up. We did kind of a teaser, and then it went nuts. And so I decided to bring on the winner of our March Madness series. I've got Chief Anderson from Greenville Fire Rescue on with me tonight. How you doing, Chief?
Hey, Ryan, it's great to be here. I'm glad to be here for this opportunity. I'm one of those kids that grew up, with the TV being rolled in during the ACC tournament and March Madness kind of stuff when I was in elementary school. So big sports fan. So we're so happy that we won this, but we're ready to jump right into this competition. It was right up.
No doubt. You and I were just talking before the show started. We've had kids in sports. We grew up, like you said, watching the ACC tournament on TV. We're in the middle when we're recording this of the NCAA basketball tournament. And again, I really had no idea. Like I said, my son, he loves all things sports. And so we really just wanted to do something of where we could bring the fire service together. And what better way, right, is to give the fire service the opportunity to weigh in on something. Not that the firefighters are opinionated or anything, right? So never at all. So we put it out there. We had several departments, 8 of them to be exact, and every color across the rainbow, from blue to lime to yellow, orange, red and black, straight red, and of course, y'all, purple. Y'all won, and it came down to Swannanoa and GFR. And man, I tell you what, we had, when it closed last week, 990 comments in 24 hours. I don't even remember the share count. And I got to tell on myself. We were talking right before. I used AI to do the count because I had people texting me nonstop. Hey, how are you going to count? How do you keep up? All these kind of things. It got to a certain point, like day 1, day 2, I'm out there at a ball game, right? And I've got a little notebook, and my buddy who's on the fire department with me, he was counting, and we're counting, and we're counting, and we're counting. And it got to be too much because people really caught on to it. And then, man, I had car dealerships in Greenville literally voting for y'all. So kind of tell me the story behind the purple fire truck, if you don't mind, Chief Anderson.
Yeah, so the purple fire truck, it kind of predates even me. Back about 20 years ago when I started in Greenville, we were just getting our first version of the purple and gold fire truck, and man, it was a huge success. People love it. They wanted it to come. All the standbys, people were requesting the purple fire truck. So, as it got time to replace it, I happened to find myself in the logistics role in our department, which that's kind of where we have the truck committees and people that are building the trucks. So when I got a chance to do this, I was kind of the person kind of leading this effort. So this version 2 is pretty much kind of my baby. We kind of started out with that. We had a committee, but we dealt with we buy Pierce trucks, so we dealt with our salesperson Wade Ferrier, who, by the way, is a huge NC State fan.
No doubt, I know Wade well.
Yeah, down in the southeastern part of the state. But Wade's a huge state fan, but he said he really wanted to do this and do it right. So we had to reach out. We got with ECU. We made some contacts there. We have a great relationship with East Carolina, and so we reached out. So the purple and gold are the actual trademark purple and gold colors. We also got the trademark logos we were able to use on them. So we had to coordinate that through Pierce, which took a little bit of work. Working through all the legal parts of it. But there is actually a Pierce Greenville Fire Rescue East Carolina purple color. If you've ever been to Pierce, you've seen all the color wall.
Yeah.
They've got 1,000 different colors of red. We've got our purple up there, and that's the ECU purple. There's only one truck that shade of purple in the world that I know about, and that's in Greenville, North Carolina.
That is so cool. So tell me and tell all the listeners. Now I'm in the East, and I've been to Greenville. I've been in the jungle, right, at Pirate Baseball. It's a unique experience. But tell me about really what is Pirate Nation, and why did your department feel it so important to start that tradition 20 years ago? I mean, we had Bowie's Creek, right? Like, obviously there was a connection for them. But why is it? Why is it that you guys felt it strong enough to lean away from the tradition, the fire service tradition of red, to that purple and gold?
So that truck services the area right around the university, and just historically, ECU's always feel like the kid brother kind of towards the bigger schools in the Triangle area of the state, UNC, those schools. So we've always kind of had a chip on our shoulder, especially here east of I-95, for a lot of different reasons, and we won't need to go into the politics of all that. But I think everybody in the East just bands together, and when it's time to come together and do something, I think that's what kind of embodies Pirate Nation. That it's more of it's not really about the school. It goes way beyond the school. The school is just a method to get that out. It's everybody in Eastern North Carolina. Anytime you need something, it's one of the greatest places to live, because if you have a need in Eastern North Carolina and you let people know, they're going to step up and help you. And that attitude is kind of what it kind of embodies that vehicle, and what embodies that Pirate Nation spirit. And you're right, being in the jungle, being at Dowdy-Ficklin on Saturday, that's really special, and people in other parts of the state really don't get it unless they've experienced it and lived here. So just special that we could kind of bring that forward to the department and use that as a mechanism for us to show our support as well.
Is there something about being assigned on that truck? Obviously when you were on the truck committee and in previous years, when you were on shift, was there something about being assigned to that truck that was different than other assignments? That's kind of a curveball question, but it's something that just hit me there.
Oh, absolutely. I was assigned, I was a lieutenant on that truck that was one of my first assignments when I became a station officer in the department. It's kind of the truck that went to everything downtown. The downtown station was right in the center of it all. So, we have a Halloween event or just the basic day-to-day operations, ECU football games. We bring in so many people to the downtown area, and you were kind of right in the middle of everything. That truck was being in the center part of the city. It kind of responds to all the, structure fires and things like that. It's just at everything. And we had a saying when I was on the truck, we were first due to everything. And so there's a lot of pride that goes with riding on that truck, and it seemed to carry on, at least in the 20 years that I've been here, in the second version of the truck.
How does GFR and just Greenville continue to build on that engagement from when it started through the second generation? And I don't know how old that truck is now. It looks beautiful in the pictures. Obviously, I haven't been there to see it in person. But how are y'all building off of that momentum, and even in the recruitment of new personnel? Kind of what does that culture look like for y'all around that truck?
Yeah, we have such a great relationship with East Carolina. ECU athletics, everything's so interconnected. ECU baseball coach Godwin and I went to high school together. I mean, there's just so many connections. We played baseball together. There's so many connections with that. Coach Harold, the football coach, he had us out for, he had a first responders day at practice. He had had the purple and gold truck out there. We pulled up on the field, got a firsthand look at football practice, which is something you don't get a lot from Division I football coaches. They don't want a lot of people in there watching them practice. It's something, everything they do, everything ECU does, it just works so seamlessly together. Like I said, we have great relationships with the athletic department. And if you think about it, in Dowdy-Ficklin, you bring 50,000 people in on a Saturday. That makes it a large city within the largest city, pretty much east of I-95 and north of Highway 70. So it's a big deal for us. We have to put, almost a whole other shift on just to handle Saturday football games, because we provide the fire and the EMS for all ECU athletics. So it's just I think it's great that we all just work together so seamlessly, and everybody is pulling for one mission, and that's just to make not only the university and the fire department great, but to make the city and the region great as well. And we just all understand the economic impact of everything, and it's just kind of you'd be surprised how well so many different. A lot of times when you get governmental entities working together, it doesn't really work together that well.
Mm-hmm.
But it does here. It just works great. It's just a great community to be a part of.
I love it. One of the last questions I got for you, Chief, is when this March Madness came out, obviously I didn't ask permission. I kind of just picked you. So once it kind of got out, and I didn't do that with anybody, I did that kind of randomly. What was the tone around in the stations? Did it even come up? I mean, once you guys had found out, what was kind of the sense in the conversation once you guys had found out that y'all were in the competition?
Yeah, so we're working really hard. I've been the chief since October to expand our social media presence and outreach, and just I think it's such a great recruitment tool if done correctly. It's just such a great tool for us. So we're monitoring those things all the time. And once it popped up, like I said, that's being competitive as I am and having a sports background. That was right up my alley. We're going to go win this. As soon as we saw we were part of the competition, we were in it to win it, so to speak. So yeah, we took we kind of blitzed the effort. We make sure we share it on all our social media sites. We encourage people, and our people right now are so bought into what's going on at the fire department. They were willing, our members just willing to share that, and they share it, their families share it. So we were getting a lot of shares. Just really wasn't a coordinated thing. I'd love to tell you that it was, but it was just kind of grew out of just people wanting to be the best, and that's kind of the what we've set here for our plan. We call it the GFR standard. We want to be the best. We want to lead the East, and this is just another way we do it in a fun way. Obviously, this was something fun for us to do, but in all aspects of what we're doing at Greenville Fire Rescue.
I love it. Last question I would have, and I love the fact that it was authentic and genuine with that, and that kind of leads into my last question. If you could speak to the chiefs and the officers and the boards who were kind of on that truck committee and are cautiously concerned about daring to be different when it comes to those, what would you say to them about kind of taking those steps of faith? And I mean, you've given them some great points, but any kind of last things to leave them with when they question about being different when it comes to their apparatus?
Yeah, I just think a lot of times the fire department just kind of wants to be the fire department and be left alone. And it's very important that you're a part of your community, because if that truck brings pride to not only your members but your community sees pride and benefit in it, they're also going to back you up when you need something else that's not a fire truck. The community has buy-in in Greenville to that fire truck. Everybody's attached to that truck, whether you're a student at ECU or you're a longtime resident. They love to see that thing coming up and down the road. Just think about your community. It's got to be something that represents your community, because I just have this belief that the fire department in any community, whether it be 100,000, 2 million, or 150 people, should be the center of that community, and that should be what anchors people, especially in rural Eastern North Carolina. That should be what anchors you to your community. You should be known, and you should show up for your folks. So just dare to be different. Jump out there and just make it a part of your community, and you get that buy-in from your community. You can do anything you want to do with your fire department.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining us today, Chief. And I haven't decided yet, but I think that there's a good opportunity that you may get the bid automatically in for next year just to retain that championship. So you may want to get ready, because come next March, you may be in it again.
Well, we may have another purple truck coming. I kind of hinted at that in some of my comments. There is we do fire and EMS. We're a little bit different in Greenville than most other large municipal departments in the state, but I will drop it right here. There is a purple ambulance on the way to ride beside that purple fire truck downtown. So something we're looking forward to, and just stay tuned.
You heard it here, folks, on the Carolina Fire Watch. Thanks for joining us, Chief.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
All right, now on to the main point of today's episode. With me today, I've got Tony Bailey with the North Carolina Office of State Fire Marshal's Office, and we're going to be talking about rostering and specifically our SERT data. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Brian. Glad to be here this evening.
Yes, sir. Well, I want you, before we get diving in too much, to do us a favor and tell us a little bit about your fire service journey, and more specifically, the role that you play with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, because a lot of folks may or may not realize that role. And before we talk about SERT data, I think it's important that people understand how you advocate for us in that capacity as well.
Okay, so this is my 34th year in the fire service here in North Carolina. I've had a good career, both volunteer and the career side, which I think is very important in the fire service to understand both sides of the fire service. I started out here in my hometown of Nashville. My first paid job was in 1998. My career actually started in 1992. So spent about 15 years here in Nashville, here at my department here at home. Left in 2010 and took a 2-year stint in Wake County as a district chief up at the Stony Hill Fire Department. And the rest of my career from 2013 on has been with Austin State Fire Marshal. I've got two grown boys, Matthew 30 years of age and Daniel's 28. And then been married to my lovely wife, Mandy, for 32 years this year. So very proud of that. My work with the Fallen Firefighters Foundation actually started back in 2009. And kind of what got me started in 2009 were the 16 life safety initiatives that came about in 2004 in Tampa, Florida. As the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation set these 16 life safety initiatives to guide the prevention of line of duty deaths and injuries. So from 2009 up until 2014, I served as an advocate for North Carolina. Also served as a state lead in North Carolina during that time. At a part of 2013, just a little story, I got diagnosed with colon cancer. So in 2013, I decided I need to take a leave of absence from the foundation due to my treatments, my surgeries. I never want to try to do a job and not be able to do the job at 100%. Mm-hmm. So I took a stint away from it for a while. The Lord's blessed me, very healthy. Like I said, 13 years out, cancer-free this year, which I've been very, very blessed with that. And in 2021, I attended the North Carolina weekend at the National Fire Academy. And while I was there, in doing some research in the class that I was taking, I realized North Carolina had no representation in that program. So that kind of spurred me to ask myself, hey, you still got some fuel in the gas tank. Let's jump back at this thing and get back involved and get this program back going in North Carolina. So fortunately for me, I came back. I was immediately named state advocate again. Worked through, built a team here in North Carolina. We're up to about 27 advocates here in North Carolina. Very proud of the team we got. We've got a team pretty much based on all 3 regional association regions, East, Piedmont, and West, of about 27 to 28 advocates. And our main job is to go out and meet with fire departments and provide classes on the reduction of line of duty deaths and injuries. And pretty proud of that. We had a big year last year. We trained over 1,000 students last year across the state in all 3 regions. So we had a banner year, and we're moving on and doing some good things this year. So I'm very proud of our work and very proud to be a member of the Fallen Firefighters Foundation.
I love it. I love it. And thank you for what you have done and what you continue to do, as well as the other advocates. And I'm sure we will share some information moving forward about the resources that are available through those different initiatives, as well as other trainings as well. And I think that's kind of a perfect segue into this month's topic that is really about helping each other. And that's really what rostering is all about. It's listing our resources, and that way when our brothers and sisters in our neighboring departments really need each other. And so, Tony, for our listeners, we've got folks that have been around the fire service for a long time. This is our 4th episode that's dropping, and I've had some people come up to me now and say that they really appreciate these shows. And that's people from all stages in the fire service, from the rookies to the folks that have been here a minute to the folks that have been here a long time, like you, and they've seen a thing or two in that. But But for those that have been here at any stage, why don't you refresh our memory really what rostering is and what that SERT database is all about, and then we'll dive into those elements in detail.
So our rostering system is something that we built several years ago in preparation for response to emergencies and disasters across the state. It's actually tied into our web page, not our web page, but our OSFM24 portal that chiefs can go in. We actually activate the rostering system in some cases, most of the time, a couple of days before an event. Now, if we have a hurricane, obviously we've got time to plan, but a wildfire such as the wildfires we're experiencing out in the western part of the state and all across the state right now, sometimes it comes up and we activate it fast. We need resources fast. So there's no rhyme or reason when that rostering system's going to come up. But what happens is, as we prepare for an imminent disaster, the rostering system's cut on in our system. Chiefs and county fire marshals are notified that we're rostering personnel up for potential deployments across the state. So what that rostering system allows us to do is to go ahead and have chiefs and departments roster their personnel. They do this in conjunction with their county fire marshal. We want to make sure that coordination and communication with county fire marshals is done so everybody's on the same page. And once those resources are rostered, we start pooling those resources in our system as we get requests from the state EOC. Then we can start assigning those resources and getting those resources deployed out based on the needs of the instant. So that's kind of the rostering piece in itself.
I love that. And I think, if you listen to the other podcast, the Cool Fireman podcast, where we interviewed Daryl Rayner and we talked about West Pharmaceuticals, or if you go back and listen to episode 2, where we talked about the QVC response, you would listen to a very early on, which I don't think rostering was in place, obviously during West Pharmaceutical, but I'm sure it was in place for the QVC. And so, those resource requests, whether or not it was official rostering at QVC, you may be able to speak to that. But at least being able to have a database, a centralized database of those equipment and resources are very helpful to that. So how do you think our statewide response plan ties into these assets? And did it tie into incidents like the QVC fire for responses?
So during the QVC fire, most all of the resources that responded and contributed to that event were local county-to-county response. We didn't actually activate the rostering system. Basically, command reached out to several counties. Most of the need there were, of course, personnel and tankers for water. So most of that was done at a county-to-county level. The state fire response plan, of course, is managed by our office, the Office of State Fire Marshal, and it comes in conjunction basically with what we consider ESF4, which is ESF4 is Fire and Emergency Services mode in the state EOC. And what that plan does is facilitates how we bring those resources together to get them to a deployment and be able to get them out to the needs of the local jurisdictions when these events occur. So it's simply the backbone of what we do from the fire side on ESF4.
So to that point, you have an instance of where, maybe one's reimbursable, one's not. And we may talk about that here in a little bit. But again, one is a regionalized response versus one is a statewide response and the coordination of that. And I think that that's very important, but still they're coordinated at a county level. So that way there is a justification and a coordination of those resources. And we kind of hinted around to that in episode 2. Departments don't need to self-dispatch in any instance, whether it's for reimbursable or non-reimbursable. So, it's not just for wildfires, kind of to your point, it's hurricanes, it's severe weather, or it's anything like that. How do you think that rostering, how vital is that? And kind of take me through, if you will, the steps of how that works. So we've got let's just use a scenario. We've got a hurricane, and we identify that we've got some resource requests that are coming in now at a statewide level. That roster has been activated. What does that look like for folks that are looking to fill a request or be part of making a request?
So once the rostering system is cut on and in place, that immediately allows the fire chiefs and county fire marshals to go in conjunction with each other and start rostering different resources, whether it be boats, it could be engines, it could be tankers, rescue trucks, whatever the incident is calling for based on what's going on with the incident. So once these resources are rostered and we start pulling them into the system, we simply, once we get them in there, we wait and look for coordination and deployment requests from the regional coordination centers. And I hadn't mentioned those, but basically you have RCC Central, RCC East, and RCC West. And a lot of those requests go into those regional coordination centers and from those RCCs to the state EOC, where there's always a couple of us there at ESF4, the state EOC, to manage these requests to start pushing out these resources. So it's to me, it's vital that we can pool the resources, have a working knowledge. Our relationships with the chiefs across the state, we work very hard to build relationships with the chiefs across the state, learning what resources are out there. But on their side, it's also important that they go in and update their SERT inventory and their resource list in our system, because that is very, very vital for us to track and keep up with what resources are available for an incident based on each department in the state.
So I'm gonna say I haven't been a county fire marshal in several years. Does that monthly report still come out to the county fire marshals?
It does. It's probably not as updated as it needs to be. I encourage all the chiefs that are listening tonight to make sure you go in there and update as equipment changes. If you've got a good working list in there that you feel is relevant, we're fine with that. But any changes, if you add a boat, you can even add a level of training that maybe your department hadn't done, such as getting wildland certified, going through taking the S130, S190 classes that allow you to actually get on the fire ground during a wildfire event. There's teams out there across the counties, swiftwater teams, local teams. There's local forestry teams out there. So any and all of that ties into when we're receiving those resource requests and the ability to get those resources and apparatus out for deployment.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to lead to is if you're not getting that monthly report, number one, that's a problem. You need to contact your ratings inspector or even Tony or somebody and make sure you're getting that report. And if you're not sure of what the SERT data is, you log into your OSFM 24 portal and you can see what information is there. I know, like you said, it's training, it's apparatus, it's specialty equipment, it's certain types of hand tools that can be in there as well. So you've talked about the equipment and making sure that it's up to date. So let's say a deployment has occurred. I'm a fire chief. I hear that this storm is going to hit the East Coast. And so I've got a group of folks that want to pay back. Hurricane Helene hit the western part of the state pretty hard. And so now they want to give back. And they say, hey, we want to go. So the chief goes in, they log it in, and they roster people. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait. So just because you rostered does not mean that you are deployed. Kind of talk us through that. What does that look like?
That is correct in what you just said. Just because you're rostered in the system does not allow you to deploy to an event. And I'll walk you through the deployment process. If we have a pool of resources, say we get a request for a tanker strike team, for example. What we're going to do is we're going to go in there and see how many tankers we have, the proximity of those tankers to the event. We want to try to get closest resources to the event in the event they're needed quickly. Sometimes we have to reach out quite a distance, and it could be a day before those apparatus get there. But we look for those close proximity apparatus, such as those tankers. And what we do is we reach out to the chief. Chief, are you ready? Do you have your personnel ready? We are going to deploy you. Once that's done and we get the okay, we send a crew link to that department. So what that does, that allows the chief to go ahead and fill out the contact information of the crew that's going to be on that particular apparatus. Specifically, who the officer is going to be, phone numbers, emails, that type of thing. So once we get the crew link back, then we can send what we call a deployment, a mission number, a deployment order. A mission number is already assigned. We send a deployment order. When that deployment order comes through on email, it has basically where you're going, your location you're going to be checking in at, a contact person on the ground, whoever that may be, a local on the ground, or it could be one of our personnel from OSFM. Typically, when we're deploying resources from the state EOC, we always send basically what we call a strike team leader or task force leader from our staff with those apparatus based on those needs, just to coordinate that response, the travel to and from, making sure they're fed, they're watered, everything's they're bunked down, just to coordinate all of that. So it's very, very important that gets done, and we try to coordinate that ahead of time with the locals before deploying those resources.
I like that. It's nice to know that someone is there to assist in those deployments, because sometimes you may have someone that has never deployed before and they don't know what steps are needed, and so that will definitely help. And so there's this system, and that may have been what you were talking about. And so, just for clarity purposes, is that system that you just spoke about, is that the resource entry and deployment system, the REDS, or is that something different?
So the REDS is actually the rostering system. All of our resources, the resources or any actual pending deployments are going to be run through Web EOC through emergency management. Web EOC is basically the Bible on deployment and response to events and disasters. That's actually going through some updates right now, but what you see is typically you log into this system. I can see all the missions in the system, what requests are coming in, and then we start to work based off what we're seeing and what's being given to us from ESF4 to state EOC to start deploying these resources out.
Yeah. And just for clarification, those resource requests or the desire to roster, I would be remiss if I didn't say that those emails didn't come out from OSFM as well as the North Carolina Association of Fire Chiefs. Those are a great partner across the state to make sure that those resource requests, when rostering does happen, that information comes out as well through them. So kind of going back to that and looking at things, because of your role in ratings and inspections, how does your team already work with departments on apparatus and equipments in ratings and inspection? And how does that tie in really to that SERT data?
We're really fortunate to be able to go out. We have basically 9 inspectors across the state that work in all regions of the state weekly. And what happens, Brian, is these guys go out, they're working with that equipment. They learn that equipment based on what department's resources are. They audit their grant equipment. A lot of times the grant equipment is actually involved as part of the process on deployment with the apparatus and the resources. So these guys basically have a working knowledge of this equipment before an event, which helps us know where certain resources are, know what level of resources are, and aids in that being able to deploy those resources faster across the state.
I love it. Why do you think it's so important that departments provide that accurate information? I mean, can't they just wait until you guys come by and look at their stuff? I mean, what's the rush, right? a fire engine's a fire engine?
Well, not necessarily. When you look at FEMA typing and the way FEMA types apparatus, you can get very confused between a Type 1 engine and a Type 6 engine. A Type 1 engine typically is going to be your structural firefighting engine, and a Type 6 engine would be what we know as a brush truck. So there's differences in pump sizes, hauling capability of personnel, tank sizes, what that particular apparatus can do, and how it operates on the scenes. Chiefs need to have a working knowledge of what FEMA typing is and how that typing plays into those potential requests that we may get for a particular event.
Do you think that some of that would also play into maybe where you may put that fire engine? So, for example, if one has dump capabilities and one does not, you may put one in a rural setting and one in a more urban setting based off of those requests?
That is very much so, yes. And that's why it's important to know what those capabilities are. When you go up, such as an event like Party Rock, those Type 1 engines, those bigger custom engines, they're going to be on the street. They're going to be on the roadway. You're not going to put them up some of those rural paths and some of those logging roads to be able to get back there to protect some of these structures that are back off the beaten path. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll get a pool of resource together. We may develop a task force of, say, an engine, a tanker, and a brush truck, and have those three trucks operate as a unit, as a task force on that scene to support one another, where they have access capability to water as well as the larger pump sizes in the event they have a structural situation that they need to become involved in.
Sounds good. Well, let's kind of shift this a little bit to we've talked about rostering. How important is it for those fire departments to inform their county that they're rostering, and why is it so important, do you think?
So one very important component of making sure the county's notified and the county's working locally with the departments in their county is you do not want to overtax or overstretch the resources in one county on deployments. You want to make sure that, we try to distribute those deployments evenly across the state, again, based on location, proximity to the incident, training level, specific needs of a particular resource. But it allows us to coordinate and not send too much equipment from a county in conjunction with our conversations with the county fire marshals. Everybody has great auto aid agreements across the state, but we certainly don't want to overtax a particular county and empty their resources out and not be able to handle the home front in the event something happens locally.
I like it. We talked a lot about deployment already and the coordination and the different levels and the understanding what resources are available. I want to hit one in particular because I don't think people really understand this. Well, a lot of people do, but I want to make sure that people understand this specific next thing is that our state works underneath an 800 megahertz radio system called Viper. And a lot of counties operate underneath that. Some of them have standalones, and those who have standalones and are on 800 usually have a part of their Viper tied in, but we still have some that are not. So let's talk about those. For those who are listening who say, the next time there's an opportunity to roster, we're going to do it. Let's talk about the needs for a Viper compatible radios to respond with as well. Why is that so important?
Well, what Viper allows us to do, Brian, is obviously you have a multitude of channels and talk groups within that Viper radio that can be assigned to specific counties for different events and incidents. And it allows us to be able to place all of those particular resources in one county or one area or one event on a couple of common talk groups. And in the event that a particular department doesn't have a Viper radio, one thing I'd like to mention here, we have a large caches of radios across the state that in the event that we have a department that gets there that's not on Viper, we can spread those radios out and have them use some of those cache of radios we have to communicate with everybody on the scene. So there is a nice backup to that. FEMA's been very gracious. A lot of that's been grant money over the years to be able to get us, where we got interoperable communications. And again, it's very important to have those multiple channels and talk groups to be able to spread that out, because you'd be surprised how many of those channels get taken up pretty quick on a large event such as Helene.
And or you respond into a county that doesn't operate on the Viper system or have Viper
Correct.
capabilities. Those bank of radios are very, very helpful. I want to go back real quick to the documentation piece and understanding the typing and stuff like that, and your staff's role. What are going to be the expectations of documentation specifically about actual time and FEMA reimbursement? What should people know about that? And specifically when it comes, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, so if you don't, that's okay. We can defer them back to their HR or not in that case. What's compensatable and what's not, including with personnel? I think it's important for people to understand that as well.
So normally on a federally declared event, there is reimbursement available to different nonprofits and municipalities across the state. One important thing that I can't emphasize enough is departments need to be very familiar with an ICS 214 form. It's basically a form, it's a resource list with a crew list on it that allows you to track your time and operations during a particular 12-hour operational plan or either a 24-hour operational plan. That needs to be very, very detailed. It needs to have all the names, who's there, who's operating for that 12-hour period, the apparatus. Standby is not a good thing on an ICS 214 form. You need to show your actual working hours. Make sure that's documented based on times, because once the event's over and all those 214s are collected, they go over to EM and they start going through these 214s to start calculating reimbursement on a reimbursable event. And if there's something wrong with that 214 or something's missing, they're going to notify that fire department and ask questions. So say this is 3 months after an event or 2 months after an event. Are they going to remember what was going on that 12-hour operational period 2 months ago? It's important to get that while you're there. Make sure it's documented and detailed, so when that packet of information goes over to EM, they can read it, it's updated, it's relevant, it's detailed, and that will speed up the reimbursement process during an event and after an event.
Yeah, I love it. That's regarding apparatus and other items on 214. If it's specific to personnel, I would highly encourage you to take a look at FEMA's guidance on compensation for paid versus volunteer status. It is what it is, as they say about that. But at least there is fair and equitable compensation as long as it's documented as it should. One last question. Go ahead, Tony.
One thing I'll say, Brian, on that too, when you talk about the personnel and even the apparatus, everything is rate-based based on that FEMA guidance. Everything basically has a rate, whether it be a Type 1 engine, a Type 6 engine, a Level 2 firefighter, a hazmat tech. Everything has a rate in that system that, again, keeps that reimbursement equitable with everybody across all lines.
I love it. Well, one last question before we close out this segment, specifically before we get to the Bucket Brigade, which I know you're adamantly looking forward to. Any last tidbits or bits of advice when it comes to rostering and SERT data?
First and foremost, if you have any questions on any of the rostering system deployments, there's information on our website. I'll reach out to your local ratings inspector. All of our guys are very versed in rostering and deployment, can answer any questions. You just go to your assigned county, figure out who your ratings inspector is. They will be more than glad to answer any questions you have on that. Again, become familiar with that ICS 214 forms. Make sure you have a good understanding of that. And always remember that when you're deployed, and I'm going to use Helene as an example, we lost radio communication during that event. That was critical. We didn't have phone service during that event. So always remember this phrase, the first 72 is on you. And that means the first 72 hours, you could be in some conditions that you're not used to being in. You could be bunked down in the dark with a generator running. You may not have phone service. You may be eating MREs and drinking water at that point in time. All of these things take time to build up, to get the resources on the ground, to get things in a better condition than what we found when we got there. And we learned that very much from Helene, that it took time. Again, we were fighting phone and radio outages, and that was extremely tough on us, trying to communicate and account for our personnel at State EOC.
I love it. Well, it's been some great information. All right, let's get ready for Bucket Brigade. All right, Tony, it is the part that everybody loves. And you said before we even hit record that this was a hoot. So you've seen it before. I got to ask you, is there any one question that you hope you don't get that you've seen on the other ones?
I'm certain there are questions out there that I hope I don't get. I just don't know which ones they're going to be, but I'm going to try to answer them in as truthful situation as possible.
Well, I told you before we started recording that you didn't know because I changed up the questions. So if you're watching this and you're afraid that I may pull you as a guest, don't worry. I do pick new questions. So you know how it works. You're going to pick 5 questions, 1 through 100, one at a time, and then you're going to answer them. So whenever you're ready, Tony, give me your first number.
57.
57. Here we go. What's your, quote, I'm never going to live this down, end quote, moment?
The one thing that I'm never going to live down is probably been 20 years ago now. I was responding to a structure fire one night and was the officer on the engine. We had just taken our hose bed cover off for repairs that night. So as we were responding, of course, the wind got up. It was really windy, and we laid 1,000 foot of supply line before we got to the fire. The most comical moment of all that was when the driver got out to check the hose. He came back to his side and stuck his head in the window and said, "Captain, we don't have any hose." And of course, you didn't want to hear my response at that point for that particular question. But luckily, we were able to overcome. We had a mutual aid engine that came. They backed in, laid out to the road. We set up a drop tank without a lot of downtime. But that's something I'll never live down. And just for the record, I'm not going to name the people that were involved in that. But I'll take it, and the people that hear that will know who I'm talking about.
I was going to say, do you still hear about that?
I still hear about it. Yep.
20 years later. So for those that are worried, for those that are worried about doing that, you'll never live it down. I love that one. That was a good one. And hey, you lived up to your word. Very first question right out the gate. You got one of the good ones, and you answered it right away. I love it. All right, question number 2.
24.
24. All right, right here. Something you've said that came out completely wrong.
Something I've said that came out completely wrong. This is a tough one. It would probably go back to a particular maybe interpretation on a rule, Brian, that I didn't read up on very carefully, that I may have said something that wasn't technically textbook, that I may had to go back and research again and clean up an answer. I would say that's probably the most common. The common thing with me would be some type of interpretation on the grading system or the fire service or whatever of making a correction. And one thing I'll say, I don't care how old you are, Brian, we never stop learning from
Yeah.
25 to 99. When you stop learning in this business, it's probably time to give it up. But I would say that would be one of the things where I had to correct myself on and it didn't come out right.
Well, I will give you this little bit of tidbit. You know, you and I met, I don't know how long ago, on a grading here in Onslow, and I will tell you, it did not have a necessarily positive outcome. But I will tell you, I can remember your demeanor. It was one of humility and respect, and so I think that because of that, hopefully, folks gave you grace when you didn't. So your
They
reputation
did. They
precedes
did.
you.
I
Yes.
can
Well,
honestly say they did, and that's nice for that to happen. It really is, because we all make mistakes. We're all human, right?
that's 100% right. But I think your character speaks to your to the grace that's given to you. So if it wasn't, you probably wouldn't have got it. So no doubt.
Amen.
What's your third one, bud?
16.
16. Hey, that's my favorite number. Most awkward silence you've been part of.
I would say probably the most awkward silence I've been a part of is during a surprise inspection. Fire department internal members got into an argument. And, we have a job to do, don't get me wrong, but we're not going to intervene in verbal confrontation with fire chiefs and board members over something going on in a fire department. But we do have those times where that will happen. And what we try our best to do, Brian, is to try to keep everything calm. Hey, this is not the end of the world. We can fix this. Let's not go this route, and try to keep everybody at a calm demeanor. But I would say that would be the example of that.
100%. I've been part of some of those awkward silence moments, and you're 100% spot on. You just sit there and kind of watch things play out. But to your point, I've seen y'all come in and kind of calm the waters at the same time too. I love it. All right, your fourth question.
33.
33. What's your "this is why I can't have nice things" story?
Well, I feel like I do have nice things. I would like to have nicer things. But one thing I've always lived up to, Brian, is I always like to live within my means. Growing up, on a tobacco farm and working, it was very important for us to learn responsibility and what work was about, what that responsibility was about. And I've always tried to live within my means, make the life that I can based on the ability that I have with the income that I have coming in. God has blessed me, up and down. I have everything I live, a wonderful family, a wonderful job, co-workers. I'm very blessed, though I would like nicer things such as beach houses and things like that. They're a want, not a need, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfectly good sense, and I love it. And I'll tell you, I don't know that was the intent of the question, but I love the answer. Absolutely love. I love it. All right, fifth question. What you got? What's your number?
88.
88. All right. A time you committed to something and instantly regretted it.
I would say that would have to be becoming a little league baseball coach.
Yeah.
I enjoy sports. I enjoy, working with kids and doing the things that need to do to make those kids grow and have fun. But the reason I regretted it was the fact of the parent intervention and confrontation during games. And you've heard the old saying, everybody deserves a trophy, participation trophies, that type of thing. I'm not a big fan of participation trophies. I think that kids growing up have to learn what a strikeout means. It's not something that you go over there and cry about. When you get thrown out at home plate, it's part of the game. If you don't hit a home run, it's part of the game. But these parents today, and not trying to pinpoint or point fingers at anybody, but some of these parents today have really lost touch at what the game's about, which is about growing their kids, allowing their kids to have fun versus being confrontational and, the coach never does anything right. It's all his fault. Why is my son or daughter not playing? Those types of things. So I kind of regretted that after a while because I ran into some of that, but I would say that's a good example of that.
I love it. Well, Tony, thank you for joining us tonight. Again, thank you for your role that you play in SERT, the ratings and inspections piece, and also and especially the North Carolina Fallen Firefighters Foundation as well. If the folks want to know more about SERT rostering, where can they go to find out that information specifically?
They can go on our website. There's a link to some of the frequently asked questions on our website, and also reach out to your local inspector. We love to come out, sit down, and talk shop. It doesn't always have to be ratings and inspections. It could be general fire service questions. It could be something on SERT. We're here to help. That's the key. And reach out to us and use us as you see fit.
Love it. Well, thank you again, Tony.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I decided to come outdoors and kind of just send it off for April's show. And we had a great episode this month where we talked about all the things merchandise, March Madness, SERT rostering, and of course this month in North Carolina Fire Service history. And we gave that wonderful spotlight shout out. I just wanted to give you some very, very important reminders as we close out this month's show. Don't forget the midwinters, kind of a play on word there, conference is still registering right now on behalf of the North Carolina Association of Fire Chiefs. There's still time in Concord to go check out their website. But more pressing than that is don't forget that we've got 3 regional association meetings coming up. First, the Eastern is going to meet April 9th at 6:30 at Snow Hill Fire Department. Be sure to check our socials for reminders about that. Then the Western, we're going to jump all the way over to the Western North Carolina to Advance Fire Department in Davie County, April 15th, again, 6:30 p.m. And then the Piedmont is going to meet April 29th at 6:30 at Belham Volunteer Fire Department. Y'all, this has been an awesome episode here in April. Thank you for watching. Again, don't forget to subscribe to whatever platform that you're listening or watching this on, and be sure to chime in on what you think, as somebody just commented on one of our videos about what you love. And don't forget to email us, thecarolinafirewatch@gmail.com. Take care. We'll see you next month.